Thank you very much. We also want to have Neelkant from Wells Fargo join us, but unfortunately he couldn't make it here because of some personal exigency. I hope we wish him well. But I think the intent of the session today is in the last few years we've actually post-pandemic seen a complete fundamental shift in the way we look at our work models. And when I say the work models, we are thinking about all three elements of the work models, which is the work in itself, the workplace, and also the workforce. So the intent, or at least what we want to probably spend the next 30 odd minutes is, leveraging the collective knowledge of the illustrious panel that we have at our disposal, and hear from them what we believe are some of those drivers and what are some of those implications of the choices that we are potentially making over the last few years. So to begin with, and the first thing that we want to talk about is the technological innovation, right, and how work is fundamentally evolving. And I'll probably begin with you. From your perspective, obviously being the head of Walmart and leading the engineering division there, what kind of technological investments have you guys been making, and what do you see is shaping the future going forward?
So, Vamsi, at Walmart, our purpose is actually have people save money so that they can have a better life, right? So that's the motto with which we work with, right? And what we see is adaptive retail is how we want to operate in, right? Adaptive retail is what our CTO or CEO both have been talking about, and that's what we believe is the future of retail. Okay? And when I talk about adaptive retail, what I really mean is that you have both offline and online ways of interacting with the retail organization, right? And we want the two to be as much interconnected and give you best of both the worlds, right? So I'll just take an example of that, right? Like when you go to an online shopping, right? What do you enjoy most? You enjoy there is no queue out there for you, right? You enjoy because there is a better search available for you, right? And then you also look at personalized search being given to you, right? You want to bring all that goodness in your offline experience as well. And what we do, for example, for that is we have a scan and go kind of an experience in our stores. So what you can do there is you can just scan and you can leave. You don't need to stand in long queues of the checkout lines, right? Also, we have things which we are using computer vision to even make this experience a little better. Now, when you come to an offline store, you have an experience of shopping with your family, shopping with your friends, and also you can immediately see how things are looking for you. So what we also try to do, like now we want to bring that goodness into our online experience as well. So we have an initiative where we are using all the technology advantages to give you shop with your friends and family. So what you can do as part of that is you can select any model which is very similar looking to how you, right, in the body structure, in how you want to try it on, and then you can take any apparel you want and you can try it on that, and then you can share that with your friends and family, right? And they can then tell you how is it looking on you. So it gives you a similar kind of experience. So we believe that that's the place where we want to operate in, and we have been using technology for achieving the same. And how do we do this? We work, like if you look at US, India, we work as globally one team, right? Walmart Global Tech is one team. We are an innovation powerhouse, and we are actually making how the retail is going to, how the future of the retail is going to be, right, in near future. And the other thing which we also look at is, in our ways of working is, we work like 4 in the box kind of a model, right? And so we have the technology at one side, we have the operations, we have the product, and we have the engineering. All 4 operating together as one unit globally across, irrespective of the geographies. And that actually powers us to do fast innovation, for us to deliver at much more innovative solution to what our customer needs, right? Because what we want to do is to give a better experience to our customers and to meet their needs. So that's how we are seeing technology and have been using technology in our recent.
It's actually very interesting, and if Amit, I could probably ask you a follow-up on that. Firms have actually made, as Rahul just mentioned, a significant amount of investment on the technology, but you are also a customer or a consumer of that, like from your perspective. So with this whole diversity coming in the way people operate, the work models changing to becoming more hybrid, how do you build a cohesive team? How do you get people to deliver together effectively?
Good question, right? COVID kind of proved that hybrid works. And then it kind of also proved that if you really want to leverage that part of hybrid and the capability which is coming through, then you need to kind of structure it in a way that you embrace it at a level which is allowing the organization to benefit from it. You then structure your policies and processes around the fact that okay, this is how it's going to work for you, and we'll back it up with flexible options, which could be contractual options, which could be remote options and so on and so forth. Now, when you start doing all of that, you definitely need technology to kind of come in and enable the fact that I have to equip people. I have to ensure that we can remote solve for a lot of the issues there. And how do I then kind of collaborate at the same time because we manage large teams? And that has to be supported with the fact that okay, how do I create a remote working collaborative infrastructure which teams can leverage from two fronts primarily, right? One of them is the fact that of course we have to stay engaged. The second piece is you have to also be able to motivate and encourage, and there's this human psychology of fear, right? Out of mind, not seeing will I be there tomorrow, will I not be in there? So how do you manage those kind of expectations through a further elaborate package? So you balance that with the HR side of the house. And any facet you touch today has a technology component which has to enable it. So it's a parallel process, right? You're talking about the customer-facing experience. We're looking at the fact that, okay, how do I service that experience by working through hybrid? Now, you can choose to experiment with hybrid wholeheartedly, 50-heartedly, or 20-heartedly, right? And that is again a function of how your business model is. Now, banks in India unfortunately cannot use hybrid. That's the RBI regulation. But the shared services side of it can definitely embrace hybrid. And then global teams allows you to do the same thing in India. So it's structure, it's process, and then you have the cover of policy to make sure that you are able to seamlessly use leverage across.
And that's actually very interesting, Amit, because you mentioned about the fact that there is a certain amount of collaborative ecosystem that you'd like to create. But especially for the banking space, historically prior to COVID, it was a very regulated environment. People would be in office every day. To taking and now managing an ecosystem which, as you rightly said, everyone defines what percentage of it is hybrid for themselves. How do you see the effectiveness, and how do you look at that effectiveness?
Yeah, that's a conundrum, right? Because when you're in the office, I can measure you. I can see you. I can measure you. But when you're not in the office, often asked the question is like, it's psychological to say because you're remote, you're not going to be working as effectively as you would probably do when you're in office, right? So that's a trust element. You've got certain widgets which you've defined as success criteria when you were in office. Now that's one way to look at it, to say that's my starting point. Have that deteriorated, have I kind of improved? Am I fussed about the fact that I should do it in 8 hours and I'm now doing it in 9 hours without any impact to my output? Not really. Do I want to get anal about it to say, no, it has to be done in 8 hours? So that's the conundrum that I was referencing to. In some of the other areas, you're able to very effectively capture it because there are systems to do it. But in some of the non-areas, you look at productivity from a lens of, has it dropped, have I improved, or do I need to track it because it's dropped? And I think you've got various forms of solutions out there, right? Some are invasive, some are non-invasive, some are remotely in there. It's a balance. If your business is highly productivity oriented, then clearly you need to measure it and track it. But if it's an outcome-based approach that you're working on, then is that really relevant to be tracked to the NSD? So that's the approach that we've taken. I think a large part of it, all of this is trust. You work for an organization and I trust you to do what you are being asked to do. And you deal with the fallout of when that trust is broken. So yes and no, but definitely respect the fact that people are here to do a job.
So now coming back and raises the point that Amit just made. It is very important collaboration, and I think the need becomes a lot more heightened when we talk about innovation and breakthrough thinking, which is a lot more forward looking. So how do you enable that innovation in this ecosystem? Because you spoke about a lot of investments that you guys are making in the future of retail, or probably in many cases defining the future of retail. how do you bring these people together and continue to drive that innovation?
So innovation, I would say, is a culture, right? And you actually work towards it, right? And if you look at a lot of what is happening in retail today, right? All the disruption which is being done in the digital space, right? Is all powered through technology, right? And people are your spark, right? Towards the innovation, right? So 2 or 3 things which primarily comes to the mind, right? You invest in your people, right? You invest in the people for innovation. So what you do is you have programs running, right? Training programs, or you have tech hubs which are available throughout the company, right? We have a tech hub which is available throughout the company where people can go and learn about newer technology, what's going on, right? What's not working, what are the things on which they want to learn more about, right? Second thing is, we have programs in-house, like SparkTech is one of our programs which is pretty well known across the industry, right? Where we actually are within our company looking for newer ideas, right? And we then ask people to publish, come with a prototype, come and publish their papers, right? What is going on? Like throughout their work, right? They are the people on the ground. They come up with ideas and then solutions, the POCs and all. And then what we do is we filter some of those out and then take some of them forward. That's another ecosystem we build. The third thing, what you really do is you actually also are tied up with some of the very prestige institutes, right, which are the hub of innovation today, right? For example, if you look at Walmart today, Walmart, we have a tie-up with Indian Institute of Science. We have a tie-up with them on the artificial intelligence program. We have a tie-up with IIT Madras, right? We have a tie-up with IIM Bangalore, right? We work with them, we have our associates go through those programs. So, and then the fourth thing which is always there is, always look forward to what your customers are wanting for, right? Because that's what we want to do. Our policy, our purpose today is to make people save money and live better. So constantly try to improve. And that also encourages you to come up with new ideas, to come up with innovation. So I would say it's a culture, and you work towards it by investing in your people, by enabling them, by giving the right trainings, tie up with some of the institutes, working with the SparkTech kind of programs where you encourage innovation hubs, and also you also gel well with the startup ecosystems, right? And that also is done where you interact with them, see what's going on in the industry, right? And how you can take some of those ideas forward, or partner or collaborate there and take that forward. So it's a paradigm which you build to build that culture in the company.
And that's actually very interesting and potentially a segue to the point that you just made. It's about reinventing the workforce, getting them to upskill, and that takes us to the next module on the workforce itself. And Jayanthi, I probably want to hear your views on this. When we talk about workforce in this ecosystem, one aspect is, as Rahul mentioned, about getting them to reinvent themselves, become more skilled, and acquire new capabilities. The other fact that we're also dealing with as a dichotomy in this situation is with this remote or hybrid working. The association, the psychological contract with the employee doesn't seem to be as strong. So how do we manage those people? So on one end we invest, and the other end we are also dealing with a weaker contract. So what's the...
See, it's interesting you talked about psychological contract. I was having this conversation with a Gen Z who was just getting into the workforce. And I said, remote working for a fresher doesn't make sense because, you wouldn't get to know the coffee corner talks and things like that. And then she asked me one question, is that really important? How many organizations have you changed? It's not like you have a psychological contract with everyone. So is that necessary at all? And I said, you don't know what you're missing out on. So there is a generational shift between what's needed to be working with someone. So, the whole gig economy is kind of putting its way forward and saying, do we really need to meet each other? Do we really need to talk to each other? Do we really need to go out for coffee with each other in order to be, like you said, innovative? Then there is the other, what is called the old school, which I don't think is true, is the fact that yes, an ecosystem of innovation is not created. Innovation is not a one-person activity. It's a group of people. It's an ecosystem where incremental activities get together to make an innovative product. None of us can. It's like a garden. Every plant there which grew into a tree did something to contribute towards a very good garden. Similarly, it's with innovation. You need an ecosystem where you are allowed to put in your ideas. Everybody pitches in, and that becomes a space. So yes, remote working is kind of redefining what psychological contracts employees have with their employers, and the gig economy is definitely going to mature in the next few years. But at the same time, like you said, it's extremely important that if you want a thriving ecosystem, those ecosystems will have to have physical touch, if I may say, if that it's not inappropriate to say here, but something like that, in order for us to look at how we progress. And in that context, I think I see a major shift in the GCCs. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, some of us were colleagues here, we had this, them and us, it was the US said this, the UK said this, and then there was this arm's length contract, and we all did exactly what they told us to do. We had our reimbursements checked by them and things like that. I think we've come a very long way from there, where sometimes the head of global function is based out of India. And I think this, it's been there in the pipeline for a long time. A lot of senior leaders were getting themselves based out of GCC, especially if they were from Indian ethnic origin. And a lot of expats also chose to come and adopt India as their temporary or permanent place. But you see a lot of talent moving back into India because the career growth is just as much. And the ecosystem, especially with the GCCs, is still the same. It's like, it doesn't matter where you're working from, as long as you're delivering the global strategy, it's fine. So we are seeing a few leaders who are now based out of India and who are responsible not just for the GCC, but for an overall strategy of whichever organization they are in. And I think we've reached a tipping point where many such roles, the global roles, will move into India, and GCC has been a trigger to do that.
And probably this comes to you as well, Gaurav. I think from an organizational perspective, right, you are providing services to a lot of these businesses, and the innovation or the upskilling that they demand of their own people is also something that's coming to you. So how do you look at this whole workforce and how engaging this workforce more effectively, managing this workforce more effectively in service to the businesses and of their changing aspirations?
Okay, so as a services player that serves GCCs, we've been doing it for a while now. But lately, the evolution of the business has demanded certain different things. There is a need for agility. There is a need for reskilling. There is a need for contemporary cutting-edge skills. All of the programs that probably mentioned Walmart, in terms of a hybrid sort of an approach to online and offline and omni-channel, etc. Each of these demand skill sets which are probably not available in the market, from the get-go. One approach is, of course, you search for them out there, but I don't think that would exactly cut it. You also need to reskill the people that are brought on board. I mean, you need to have the right kind of raw material to work with. But then, through structured programs, and we do it sometimes in conjunction with the GCC themselves. We structure, how should I say, mentorship programs to build in other contemporary skills. We also run academy models of our own. So those are approaches that are taken. But from the perspective of agility, I think the way you build in agility into the model is another important thing, because I work with firms, large, small, mid-size. Every partner firm has a different sort of an approach when it comes to turnaround, bringing skilled people on board. While we don't say it very openly, turnaround times are very important. And that agility that one at the GCC in India demonstrates to the parent HQ in terms of how soon you can ramp up a project team, that matters on future investments that come. So if India is able to demonstrate, I might be wrong here, but if India is able to demonstrate that they turned around the last program in a matter of weeks rather than months, that goes to your credit, and the next program comes to you as well. And that is how the GCC ecosystem in India has grown because of that. So we consider ourselves an extended arm in that sense, because our agility translates to our partner, our client's agility, and that translates to his client's agility. I've used the word client intentionally because very often, while we are all extended arms these days, In the initial days, I used to go to clients and they used to say, my client wants this. So over a period of time, that has changed. There is a more, it's an extended arm. There is an integration. But from agility, you need 2 or 3 things. That even as a vendor partner, there are firms that take weeks to turn around requirements. As an organization, what we have tried to do is that we've ourselves invested in AI. We've built platforms that help us turn around, let's say, evaluation of the right kind of people using AI platform that we've developed in-house. We also use AI for sourcing. And at the end of it, when you deploy the people, they are tracked through their entire life cycle with the client in terms of skills that they require, the grooming that you said that is required, and very often domain skills, because getting the people with the right kind of skill sets when it comes to tech skill sets, let's say, analytics is hard. But the person would have worked in analytics in, let's say, a bank, but not necessarily in retail. So when there's a requirement in retail, there is a certain amount of domain training that is required. And we kind of either do that ourselves or we create structured programs in conjunction with the GCC that drives. So that process is tracked through these platforms. In terms of on the ground, we've had situations where we've had mandates for putting together a managed services team in a matter of weeks. So turnaround times that we've seen. In my previous organizations, they used to take much longer, but as the years have progressed, companies have realized that agility is very, very important. And we've turned around mandates in a matter of 48 hours, or maybe even less, as my team would say. But those are probably good to talk about, but in a realistic sense, getting the right kind of quality on board is job one. So while TAT does matter, while agility does matter, if you don't have the right person on board, then that defeats the kind of purpose. So that kind of brings us back to the fact that in addition to agility, you need to have a good sort of understanding of your end users' requirements in terms of what are they going to use these people for, what are these projects going to deliver. So that's really how we kind of look at it. From a remote working perspective, there is a unique twist to it because often, since we're talking about remote working, often what happens is that remote working is considered a sort of a perk. I heard somebody say that it's a perk, so to attract the right talent, you need to have that. But every organization is different. Every project is different within the same organization. So it all boils down to how well you're synced up with your end user. And from a partner perspective, we use all the right tools and mechanisms. Even when we are remote, we are able to kind of connect and make things happen.
And that kind of brings me to you, Rahul, right? As a perspective, we spoke about remote and the changing work models. And judging by what's happening in the last 2-3 years, they're clear to stay, right? Hybrid seems to be the norm going forward. So, but from your perspective, obviously from a real estate standpoint, or return to office strategies, and some of these things evolving, how do you see the footprint of real estate, and how are you responding to this situation?
So, I think we've covered a lot of this, and I think Gaurav made a very pertinent point that each company will have to look at it. It's not one side. Jayanthi is engaged with a lot of corporates who are creating these strategies, and it's very unique and very different from one another. All of them seem to be working. They are adjusting as they go forward. And I think we still have some distance to cover. But I think what is most important is that GCCs have led the way in creating those modules by creating, whether it was remote work, multi-city operations, multi-geography operations, that allowed them to attract talent from those perspective. And what is now going on is we should, I think, forget about one hybrid policy. We have to focus on each company, sometimes even each function, having their own policy and then having an overarching policy for hybrid. We have seen growth in real estate. If I were to answer your question, we've seen growth in this space because each company is looking at it differently. Like I said, earlier the question was, what are the factors that we need to attract employees back, right? Because 60% of the people said that, the firms said that coming back to office is important for productivity. What they did not do was they were not looking at what were the factors that boost the performance of people, right? And that is something that companies have started to look at, and they have started incorporating these changes. This is going to change as we go forward progressively. It will change the way companies will look at their real estate. It is not going to be just a workspace, but it is going to be an enabler where you will bring in people together for trainings, for one-on-one collaborations. Of course, they can continue to work because of the extensive technology that we have. They can work from anywhere, but you will need touch points regularly to ensure that there is a culture that is being built. We have spoken about mental well-being. That is taken care of because there are no distinguishing between workspace and home space when you're working at home. You just end up working for hours because now you're working in a global setting. You have India, you have Singapore, you have America. So you're responsible for all of it and it's taken into it.
And interesting that you brought about the whole collaborative aspect and how our central workplace kind of enables that. Have you also seen some form of design changes that firms are now looking for to enable this better from a real estate standpoint, or is it more about managing ecosystems or creating collaborative spaces?
It's a different design philosophy now. Earlier it was said, we used to see this change happening every 5 to 7 years. Now it is, it's truly happening. It is in a sense, what is that your employee force requires to be successful. And there is no one size fits all. There are companies who are looking at very different models to engage with employees, and therefore the workspace is changing. Future of work has been spoken about a lot in the past. ESG compliance is becoming important. Youngsters they are asking about it, and it is becoming a part of every strategy that we work with our clients. In fact, interestingly, I was speaking with a friend of mine who's been with this large technology firm in the US, and then moved to India about 6-7 years ago prior to COVID. They've never had a work from office policy. So their company actually gave them letters saying you can work from anywhere. This gentleman moved back to India. He's never gone to office for work, but they created so many, these project initiation meetings, weekly catch-ups, all hand meetings, so many interesting collaboration formats where they almost ended up in office 10 to 12 days in a month. So they didn't ask anyone to come in, but this is happening before COVID. Right? So it didn't need a COVID, or it was not hybrid. Also has been a little, speaking too much about it, I think we earlier were catching up. It was always there. It wasn't that hybrid was not being followed by a lot of technology companies. It was always there. I think it's just got a little more emphasized after COVID.
Yeah, right. Hybrid probably is more a media term. And the noise around people refusing to come back. The combination again, media trying to play it up and all that. But it's not going anywhere. It is actually, our data is indicating at Standard Chartered that we've got about 70, it's a differentiator. People won't come and work for you because you've got hybrid options. People are staying back because of the flexibility and the fact that I can choose to do my hours in a manner that works for me. So those are the logical listing. Now we were also experimenting with, I don't know if you guys notice in the production work environment, you need staggered shifts, right? Or you need break shifts like we used to call it in the good old days. But you can do that with a hybrid environment where I can get a guy to do 4 hours in the morning, I can get him to do 2 hours in the afternoon, or whatever it is, it works in India because you're not doing it. So it's, again, earlier on, I guess, you made the point on saying that it works. What works for, it doesn't work for everybody. And you just have to take that call in a manner that allows it to enable you to reap the benefits of that.
So a lot of people are looking at the benefits also already from it, right? Like when post-COVID, when we started with the hybrid, right? And again, hybrid is a little bit more sold down, right? When people came to office, there was a good amount of feedback given that, okay, something which was taking hours and hours over Zoom is now being done in 10 to 15 minutes. Right? People were loving the personal touch. Right? That's what the social gap, the social connectivity which was missing was also coming back. Right? And people were loving to interact with each other. Right? So it's a move in the positive direction, and I think it was always there, hybrid, and it will be there. Right?
And obviously we spoke about a lot of the remote and the fact that the way you operate as a team is changing, right? And probably Jayanthi, for you, as a leader, one of the things that you also see is managing people now seems to be very different from what it was, say, prior to COVID, or when people were in more close contact or operating together from the same premises. So what are some of those things that you think have fundamentally changed from an expectation from a leader perspective?
I think at Mashreq, when we went to say, we will encourage remote working, we started facing, and that was just after COVID. So, and over a period of time, we faced a lot of issues, one after the other coming. For example, cross-border working. It's a definite no, but how can you police and monitor people? Short-term cross-border working, long-term cross-border. So we had to have a lot of governance and controls over that. And of course, moonlighting. No matter how stressful your job is, you manage to do 2 jobs. If you're doing that, you're a superman or a superwoman. So what we did at Mashreq, we said that, and of course the major controversy that came up was, it all depends on your manager's discretion. Manager likes you, remote working. Manager doesn't like you, wants to come to work. So we said it's not a manager who determines whether your work type classification is what. It's the role that will be determined. And then everybody, it's not your manager, but if the role can be done from anywhere, then that's fine. But if the role does require a person to be either part-time in office or full-time in office, then that's what it is. So there's no element of discretion over there. So that's one governance and control that we put. We still know a lot of things where, no matter how much we develop with technology, if there are people who work from anywhere, which means outside the country, we still have risk over there. Confidentiality can be a risk. Data breach can be a risk where people are working together. And it's not just, close relatives, a husband and wife working together. You can be friends, and there are a lot of young people who stay together, paying guest accommodation. A lot of data breach can happen, and it's very incestuous world. Today, if I work with one company, I know how many of you have met who are from another company, and just because we met each other, we could be exchanging data as well. So data breach, data confidentiality is still a big risk, and I think we are at a very nascent stage here, where while some companies are saying come back to office, we have to take remote working or hybrid working with a pinch of salt, and also make sure that there are governance mechanisms to control what the pitfalls that we see in the form of moonlighting, data breach, confidentiality, working for different companies as a gig worker, things like that.
Sorry, and Gaurav, if I may just ask a follow-up on that for you. Some of the challenges that Jayanthi spoke about, I think are probably a lot more heightened for you, given that you are servicing some of these GCCs. So when you look at or when you hear about these things, what's going through your head, and how do you choose to respond to some of these things?
So as a partner, of course, we need to have a little more stronger governance from our side, because we are more liable to sort of the contract as it would from an employee perspective. But having said that, I think one of the things that one must look at, and it's to borrow from some of the concepts of the future of work. When the pandemic struck, we looked at a lot of approaches there. One of the things that I think needs to be implemented in managing teams is it's not just about when your team is remote. It's also about the manager who's leading the team. He needs to be trained. Some managers, we discovered, in my previous organization, we discovered some managers were very effective when it came to remote working. While as a company we worked remote, even then, like you said, it's not something new. But then we were forced to work remote. But some managers were more effective than others. And there were studies done on that, and it's called remote worker assessments. So that's something that, as a best practice, that can be adopted. Basically, what that means is that each individual performs differently in a remote environment than he does face-to-face. And there is a science behind it. So there's a friend of mine based in Singapore, she was doing research on this. And we got talking, and I discovered that there is a framework called a DISC framework, DISC, which evaluates each team member on certain parameters as to how do they operate, how do they perform to stress, how do they perform under duress or in a sort of, are they antagonistic, do they take on work responsibly. There are so many profiles that emerge that if a manager is aware of what the strengths and weaknesses, I won't use the word strengths and weaknesses, I would use the working styles of each employee is different. And if you invested just a little bit of time to do a half day's workshop and make each employee run through that program, the manager has a viewpoint as to this is the kind of work I will give to him, this is the kind of person who will not handle conflict very well, or this is a kind of person that I don't need to overmanage. There are certain people that you need to manage. Their deliverables need to be constantly monitored. Some people slack off also because remote. If people are moonlighting, all the more so. We were talking about moonlighting a little while back, and back in the pandemic, one person was discovered to have 7 PF accounts. How does one do that? But so the point is that coming back to how you lead teams in a remote environment, if you group the team to understand strengths, weaknesses, they'll be able to be more productive in that sort of sense.
And obviously some heightened challenges managers have to potentially start relooking at the way they manage teams. But it's also, and you guys are all leading teams and being managers yourself, so probably one question to you guys. You're now dealing with diverse situations of diverse teams, diverse locations, different cities. But if in one line you could tell us what according to you is the one thing that we can do to create equal opportunities? How do we treat these people who are equal? Amit, if you can begin.
So you're talking about equal opportunity for the fact that we're now in a situation which is hybrid. And I guess it goes back to my opening statement, right? If you have a framework in place, you then have, so for example, you're looking at the fact that I will have standardized leave availability for the section, whether it's remote working or whether it's working from office. You have we were talking about this fair pay charter, right? It depends upon what you're doing and how we can enable you from that point of view. So you can, avail of the options there. Now, all of this is being done recognizing suddenly that it needs to be done. Because you can't just, overnight decide that what was good 10 years ago is good today. So you have the structure, you have the framework and the policies, and then you have a uniform way of applying it so that there is no discrimination per se. The normal thing is, oh, you're working from home, I don't get to see you, therefore you're not as productive, I can take a decision on your bonus. You don't do that. So those are the kind of things we should have to start, putting in as the leading enablers.
Rahul, how about you, Ben? Your experience of that?
So I would say, I will say what we do at Walmart. We are people at tech power family, so we continue to invest in people, and people are in the center of everything what we do. Not only do they power our current, but they also actually the present, but also enable us for our future. So we are actually pretty invested in it, and as I spoke about it, right, we have created a ample amount of opportunities and unparalleled growth opportunities for them. So we have done a lot actually, and we are pretty invested in people, and we have on the equity side of the diversity equity side of things, we have our HR resource group who are actually focused on getting presence from the community which doesn't have that big a presence, right? So we have a focused effort going there. And then also, we have a lot of investment being done on our wellness programs, right? This is again being done globally. All these programs that we speak about are global because we want to have a global equity and we work as one global powerhouse. So we have a lot of well-being programs, whether it be mental well-being, we have a lot of apps available, we provide insurances, right? Medical insurance. We also have a lot of support for traditional, non-traditional families. And then again, it's an investment which we do and we continue to do because that's it's a people-led tech power, right? Omnichannel. So that's where we are very, very focused on all the people globally.
I think This is very helpful, and I think I'd like to thank all the panelists for sharing their views. I'm sure this topic is broad enough and inquisitive enough that we could possibly sit here for days, continue to discuss the various angles of it. But I thank you each and every one of you for coming and sharing your perspectives. I'm sure there are a whole host of questions. They are available here. Feel free to walk up to them and they'll be happy to share their opinion. But thank you very much and truly appreciate your time. Thanks very much.